So today I'm going to discuss an important component of your ports and harbors, that is breakwater. Now we have seen in the previous lecture that what is actually a port, what is a harbor, and what is a dock, and then some general things, or what we had seen was the classification of harbors depending on whether they are protected naturally or artificially. Then, based on the utility, whether it is used for some commercial purpose or fishing purpose or military purpose or for some private boats, and then depending on the water body it is built in. Okay? And then we saw some selection criteria for site of a harbor, and at the end we covered this small topic on tides, which was useful or which is important for understanding the different levels of water or your sea or ocean, and depending on that levels of water you will come out with an average level, and then you will build your structure accordingly. So uh, coming to this today's topic of breakwater. Now what is actually a breakwater? So if I literally just guess by the name, so the name itself tells what is the purpose or what work it does. So it does the work of breaking the force of your water. Okay. Now we have been talking in the last lecture that harbor is a place where the boats or the ships, they can take a refuge in bad weather. So bad weather in a sea or an ocean is nothing but some violent storm, or the waves are so high that it topples your ships. So that is a bad weather from the as far as the sea or the ocean is concerned. So we are saying that our harbor is going to provide a refuge in such bad weather. So obviously, if it is going to provide a refuge in bad weather, so there should be such conditions that in whatsoever is the condition in deep sea or deep ocean, the harbor area should not be affected by the high winds or the high great waves that are there in the deep ocean. Okay, so we need to restrict that force of waves or force of winds which is there in the deep sea to reach the harbor area. So we need to break that force, and that's why, or that's where our this component come into picture, that is breakwater. On the left side what you see a photo, it is a photo of a typical breakwater. Okay? And on the left side of this photo what you see, this is the harbor side. Okay? Now the harbor is not seen here because the focus is only on the breakwater. So this side you have the harbor, and this side you have the deep sea. Okay. So even you can see a bit of waves which are hitting this breakwater. Okay, and the water on the left side of this breakwater, it is completely calm. Okay, or there is no sign of any waves or any fluctuation in the water level. So that is what the work of breakwater is, that it is constructed by the sole purpose of protecting the harbor area, because we are saying that your ships, they can come and take refuge in bad weather. So if we go by that purpose of harbor, so obviously you need to do something so that the bad weather is not affecting your harbor, because ultimately that harbor is located just at the interface of sea and land, say. So whatever is the condition in the sea, it will be the same condition at the interface also at the harbor. So we need to break that condition. Okay, so that's why these breakwaters are constructed, and the effects mainly from which we are protecting this harbor area is the effect of waves. Okay, so that your vessels as in your ships or boats, they will get a safe berthing area. Berthing as in a temporary parking sort of thing, you can say. Okay. So some more theory is written over here. I'll just leave it to you to read it later. Okay. Because it's just a general theory related to breakwater. The main thing is whatever is the effect of waves, that you have to nullify, almost nullify. Okay. So in this photograph, now this photo is a bit pixelated because it's an old photograph, but in this, you can very well clearly see that this is a breakwater which is constructed. Okay. And then you can see the water over here, you have rough water over here, rough water as in there are waves, but the water on the right side of this breakwater over here, clearly you can see it is calm water over here. There is no fluctuation in the water level, or you don't see small ripples also in the water. So this is the purpose of the breakwater, that whatever is the effect of the sea or effect in the deep sea or ocean, you don't have to let that effect carry on up till the harbor side. Okay. So once that is achieved, then only whatever are your structures that you are constructing on your harbor, okay, or the docks what you are constructing, so they will be constructed properly. They will not be facing a much of a damage, and also the ships which are anchored over there or which are loading or unloading at your harbor, the loading and unloading process will go on smoothly. This is another example. You all know, or you might have heard of Palm Islands in UAE. Okay? It's Palm Island are built in Dubai, Abu Dhabi area. Okay? And it is the one of the largest man-made islands that have been seen till now. And this involves, or I had mentioned this during our third unit also when we were discussing dredging. So now again, this Palm Islands I am showing over here for the reason that now here it is not a harbor. Palm Island is not a harbor. It is whatever this land you see, this artificial island which has been constructed. So what you have on that land is just houses and hotels. Okay, mainly for staying and commercial purpose. It's not for harbor or unloading or loading of ships. But then too, it has a breakwater, as in this whatever is the central portion. So here mainly you have the houses and all the infrastructure that is there on Palm Island, and then whatever this ring type structure you see, so here also on this ring type structure also you have your structures, that is the buildings or houses over here, but this ring type structure, it acts as a breakwater for this main structure in the center. Okay, so whatever are the effects of the sea from all the sides of this ring, so this ring, it sort of nullifies that effect, and then the structure within it is not affected because it's a man-made island, artificial island. So whatever or however you build it, whatever latest technology and good material you use, then too the forces of the nature are so harsh at sometimes that there can be a vast erosion of this artificial island. So to protect it, you have this ring. Okay? And in between you, if you see, there is a small opening. So this is because if anybody is interested, if you have read the case study of Palm Islands, so before actually constructing, they did a detailed ecological study also, and they had to keep this water inside, which is inside this or between this ring and this main structure. They wanted to keep it fresh. Okay? Because if they completely close it, if they actually make a circle, almost a circle of it, so the water will become stagnant and then the ecology will not survive. So for that, this openings were made so that the water currents, small water currents, they will allow the flow of water inside and it will keep it fresh. Okay? So this is another purpose for building a breakwater. So till now initially what I told you, that breakwater is mainly for the harbor area, but it has been seen that, or the application of the breakwater, it can be more than harbor also. So here I showed you that breakwater on the left and the harbor side, or this is the harbor on the right. Here the breakwater was in form of a ring which was protecting the artificial island. Okay? Where the breakwater itself was a sort of an artificial island, but the main island had to be protected. And for the third case study, now I found a very interesting one while I was searching for the content of breakwater. So in 2011, there was a Great East Japan earthquake. They call it over there Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. So it happened on 11th March 2011, and that earthquake, it was basically an earthquake which lasted for 6 minutes, and the magnitude was 9 to 9.1. Okay, so that's the maximum or the worst uh, earthquake that has been seen in the history of mankind till now. So it was so huge that it affected or it resulted in a tsunami, and the height of this tsunami, it was almost over 100 feet. You can see maximum it was 133 feet in one of the areas of Tohoku, Iwate. So due to this, what happened was, the just to give you or visualize the impact of this earthquake. So that earthquake was so powerful that the major island of Japan, this Honshu Island. Honshu is the largest island in the group of islands in Japan. So this whole island, it got displaced by 2.4 meter to the east side. Okay? And not only the island of Japan was affected, the whole earth, it shifted on its axis by around 10 to 25 centimeters. So it was that powerful earthquake. Now, why I'm telling you about this earthquake in the middle of a port and harbor discussion is because Japan, as you all know, it is always, or it has been always, a country which is affected by a lot of earthquakes and tsunamis. So they have actually now learned to, or they have evolved in that way, that the Japanese people, they have learned to build the structures accordingly, and for them small earthquakes, they are very common. So they have inhibited the seismic design into their each and every structure. So what they had learned from past earthquakes before 2011, so in that they had something called tsunami breakwater. Okay? The rightmost thing in this sketch what you see. So they constructed tsunami breakwaters at locations where they thought that that location was susceptible to, or there was a chance of a tsunami over there. So tsunami breakwaters were constructed at such locations, along with, so you can see this is a tsunami breakwater, and this is the just a location. For location, they have drawn a sketch of a port. Okay? And then towards the land side also, even after building a tsunami breakwater, they also have something called a coastal dike, which is a, again you can say it is a wall like structure, but now it is not on not in the sea, but it is on the land. Okay? And then whatever is the industry or whatever may be the structures, you have that. And then beyond that also, they have something called setback levee. Okay? So it is a just a mound of land or artificial hillock, you can say, that they make. So this is the kind of arrangement that the Japanese have came with for counteracting the measures of tsunami and earthquakes, frequent tsunamis and earthquakes. Okay? So their main aim is to, whatever is the force of that wave of tsunami, the huge wave which is 100 feet. So to break down that force, they have constructed such structure at intermediate locations such as the tsunami breakwater, the coastal dike, and the setback levee. So now one such breakwater, tsunami breakwater, in the Kamaishi Bay, it's an area in Japan itself. Okay? So in this Kamaishi Bay, the world's largest breakwater, it was constructed before 2011. Okay? And largest, instead of largest, you can say it was the deepest one. Deepest as in the depth of that breakwater, it was 63 meter below the water level. Okay? And above water level, it was 8 meters. So you can just imagine the magnitude of that breakwater itself. If it was not submerged in water, you would have just build a good building out of it. So it was that deep, 63 meter deep and 8 meter above the sea level. So such a huge structure, you can see in this photograph. This photograph is of that Kamaishi Bay itself. So this is the Bay Area. Now it is full of all the types of structures. You have a shipyard over here. You have some tourist attractions over here. You have some industrial area. So this area, it was protected by these two breakwaters. What you see here, straight line kind of thing. So this is just the aerial view of that area. So you are seeing looking at a straight line, but these are nothing but the breakwaters. Okay. So these were the breakwaters which were constructed in Kamaishi Bay, the deepest one. And the earthquake that I am talking about, the 2011 earthquake followed by a tsunami, it was so devastating that the whole breakwater, it was destroyed. You can see from the base itself. Okay, this is the foundation of that breakwater. So from the base itself, that breakwater was destructed, and this is also part of that breakwater itself. Okay. So these were the pillars, and over this pillar you had this breakwater or wall kind of structure over here like this. So the whole structure was devastated by that tsunami. So now you might be thinking that why I'm talking about this effects of tsunami or how the breakwater is damaged is because you need to consider before constructing the breakwater. Obviously you will design it, okay, as you design any structure. So breakwater is also a structure, but now the forces which are acting on this breakwater, they are sort of different from the forces which are acting on a structure that you construct on land. Okay, it may be a industrial shade or a high-rise building or just a bungalow. So whatever it is, so the forces which are acting on such structures on land, they are completely different, and the ones which are acting on sea, on this breakwater, they are completely different. So on this breakwater, what we have is mainly the hydrostatic forces due to water, then the external forces due to the wind and wave. Okay, and not just in case of wave, if you consider. So if I have this breakwater kind of thing, and if the wave is hitting this breakwater, so you know the phenomena of tides, high tide and low tide. So if there are tides, so whatever water it goes towards the land, it also turns back and goes again to the sea or the ocean. Okay, so this turning back or retrieval of water, it creates a suction effect in the area around the harbor, if you consider. Okay. So to avoid that suction effect also, or that suction effect also exerts some forces on your breakwater, so that also need to be considered. Then the solvent action of seawater, you know that seawater is consisting of lot of minerals and chemicals, okay, which corrodes even steel and concrete. So in that case, you need to have a good understanding of the action of that seawater on whatever material you are intending to use. And then there is effect of the ecology, that is the sea creatures, whatever are there. So they also have some effect on your breakwater, as in a mining effect. If they go deep and start borrowing that foundation of your breakwater, so that also you have to consider. So in this unit, as such, you don't have the exact design of your breakwater, but you should be aware of what goes into the design aspect. Okay, so that's why I have shown this. And again, for designing purpose, you need to collect some data. So the data will consist of all these following points, which is the coastal currents, the construction material, what is the type available and what is the cost of it, and in what quantity it is available, obviously. Then the winds, prevailing winds, the forces and the direction. Then the nature of the bottom of water body, because we are saying that the breakwater is going to be constructed till the full depth of water. Okay. Generally, it is constructed full depth, and for that you need to have a good idea about the foundation, whatever is the seabed or ocean bed or the water bed in general. So you need to have a good idea about that foundation also. Then probable maximum height, force and direction, and intensity of waves. So in breakwater, generally these two terms or these two entities, that is the waves and the winds, they play a very important role as far as the forces are concerned. Okay. So as you have studied hydrology, so in hydrology, what you estimate a storm, a 100-year storm or a 50-year storm. So in that you try to find out that in 100 years, suppose there is one storm which is going to result in maximum discharge, so you try to find out that. So in similar way, you need to study the wind condition and the wave condition of a particular area wherever you are proposing this breakwater, so that whatever is the worst case scenario, like if there is a tsunami, what I just gave an example of 2011 Japan tsunami. So if that kind of thing happens, then to whatever is the height of wave, so that needs to be estimated. Okay. Obviously, we can't be exactly sure, but at least a probable idea will be good enough for the design purpose. Then the ecology of the proposed area, ecology as in whatever is the flora and fauna in the surrounding area below the sea, so below the water level. So you need to study that also and consider that also. It's not like you will just build a breakwater and then it will serve the purpose. Many of the times it can happen that you are constructing a breakwater to reduce the effect of waves, but in that process you are harming the ecology and the aquatic life has suffered, and then after construction of breakwater it has not been restored to its original level, you can say. So a good example for this is the Palm Islands. So if you just go on internet and search for Palm Islands and you open some good research papers, so you'll find that construction of Palm Island has resulted in loss of aquatic life in that area, okay, to a certain extent. Now the exact figures or exact data they have not disclosed, but there has been a loss to ecology. And then obviously the purpose for which we are building that breakwater. So generally in harbors, we don't want that sea effect of sea waves hitting or affecting your levels of water. So that is the main purpose of your breakwater. So this is in general the design information that you require for proceeding with the construction and design and construction of breakwater. And again, if you go in detail, so the design should be for the extreme condition, as I told you. So extreme condition of wind and waves. So you see again, these two terms, they are predominantly being seen everywhere in the design process, that whatever is the wind and waves, you have to study it in detail. Then whatever is the height of breakwater, so it has to be determined based on what is the height of wave. So this you will come to know if you have a clear idea about the tidal movement of the ocean or the sea. Okay, so that's why I had discussed in the last lecture the different tides that can be there. Okay, and then there is something called freeboard. Freeboard as in whatever is the level of water, so above that level of water also you have to keep some height of that breakwater, so that water in extreme condition, water doesn't spill and go into the harbor area. So that is nothing but the freeboard. And then again you have to consider that scouring effect that I was talking about, which was during construction as well as after construction. Okay, so as far as possible that scouring effect should be zero, because otherwise it will result in weakening of the foundation of your breakwater. Okay, so this is with the design consideration. And if I talk about the types of breakwater now, so in types of breakwater, what you have is all these four types, that is heap or mound breakwater, a mound breakwater with superstructure or composite breakwater also it is known as. Then third is upright wall, and fourth is special breakwater. Now I'll just go through this types in a bit fast forward way, because if you understand what is a breakwater and why it is being constructed, and if you understand the first type itself, the heap or mound breakwater, which is the most preferred one all over the world, so then you will understand all the others as well. Okay, and except for the special breakwater that we'll discuss in detail in the next lectures. So starting with the heap or mound breakwater. Now heap or a mound, it is, if you see this term heap or mound, it is nothing but, we say that you whenever you go to a crusher site, suppose, and you see a heap of sand or heap of aggregates. Okay, so heap is nothing but just a if you pour a material, or if you just consider that you have 100 kg of sand, river sand or crushed sand in a truck, suppose, or in a container, and you just open that container and pour that sand on ground, so whatever it will form, the formation, that is called a heap. So our breakwater, this first type, it is also sort of that kind of structure. Okay, so that's why the name heap or mound breakwater. So what is done in this is there is different types of material which are just dumped into this or dumped at the desired location, and then they form a heap, and that itself acts as a breakwater. Okay. So in that, the first type that we have is a rubble mound breakwater. Now it's the most basic type that you have, and if you see the material, it is made totally out of rubble. Rubble as in whatever is the large boulders which are obtained naturally or which are obtained by cutting down the adjoining hills or high-rise areas. So that forms the rubble. And at the bottom, if you see on the left side, that is the diagrammatic representation of your breakwater. So if I consider the components of this breakwater, okay, within this breakwater also, if I consider components, so mainly you have a core, which is the innermost part of your breakwater, and over that core you have something called armor filter. Now, if you remember the previous slides, what I told you is, if I construct just a wall type of thing, okay, and if there is wave hitting to this breakwater, if this is the harbor side, H is the harbor side. Okay. So I told you that during tides, what happens? The water doesn't just go towards the harbor side; it also comes back. So if you don't make a proper provision for this water which is going to come back, if you don't make a proper provision, so that will also affect the harbor area. Okay? And that instead of affecting the harbor directly, it can affect the breakwater itself. So maybe the damage will be directly on the breakwater, but ultimately that breakwater will fail then. Okay? So you need to do something for this water which is returning during the tides, and for that you have this armor layer, which is huge rubble or boulders which are just dumped on each other. You can see on the right side what this photograph shows. So this is the these are the sizes of that boulders or the rubble that I was talking about. And if you see, they are not compacted. Okay, you can see quite predominantly there are gaps in that between two pieces of that boulder or rubble. So that gap is because we want this water which is receding during a tide to go back to the sea. Okay? So that's why we have those gaps over there. And another purpose of this armor filter is that it acts as a protecting layer for the innermost core. So the core is a solid, maybe it is a, if you see it into the components, so the armor, it is made up of 30 tons or 2 to 15 tons of huge rubble. So this is the weight of each rubble or each boulder, you can say, not rubble also, each boulder. And then you can see that they have introduced some terms called high water spring tide level and crest of mound. So this is nothing but high water spring tide. We have seen in the last lecture what is a spring tide, and in that also the high tide. So it will be having the highest most water level. So in between that water levels, you need to have this armor layer which has the 30 ton of weight, and then you have another armor layer which has a comparatively less what you can say which has comparatively small size of boulders weighing from 2 to 15 tons. Okay, and then you have filter stones in between which are again in tons. So though the sizes, if you see, so the size is not that small that it weighs in kg. The size is always, or size of that boulder is always in such a magnitude that it weighs in tons. Okay? And in the core and armor, if you see, between the core and armor, you have small stones or small boulders which are half to 2 tons. Now, I was talking about the core. So the all these armor layer, it is the main aim of this is to protect this core, because once your core gets damaged, so then there will be directly the ingress of water, sea water or the waves into this breakwater, and it will dismount the whole thing. Okay, so it's just like when you have, suppose, a heap of sand. So to protect that heap of sand, you will just place some stones over this heap of sand so that the sand is not affected by the water. So somewhat similar way, you have this mound breakwater or rubble breakwater. Okay. So this is the first one, and in this, if you see, it is the type 1 which is shown over here. Type 1 as in whatever is the MSL, mean sea level, what is there for what is the levels of sea for different locations in the world. So over that mean sea level, if you have a core, so that is a type 1 mound breakwater. Okay, so the core is going beyond the MSL also in height. And another type you have is that the core is well below the MSL. Okay, so this is the core, and this is the MSL that you have, mean sea level. So there is just this difference that one is type 1, one is another is type 2. In type 1, the core is above the MSL. In the second one, the core is below the MSL. Okay. So maybe this you can have, this type 2 you can have where you have some shallow waters. So there you can have this type 2. And for a comparatively deeper water, you can go for this type 1 breakwater. And if we talk about the advantages and disadvantages of it, so the ones in green are obviously the advantages, and the advantages, as you can clearly see from the photograph here also, this photograph on the bottom right. So on the outer side, or if you just look, it just looks like somebody has just dumped some boulders onto the or into the water, and that has created a separation between the sea side and the harbor side. So the main advantage of this type of breakwater, it is low cost, because the material that we are using, that is just boulders which are available naturally on land, or you have to just cut down some hillock and then you have to take out the boulder. So it doesn't require a lot of processing. Okay. Not even a crusher to crush down, because we don't need crushed particles, we need huge boulders. Okay. Then you don't need a preparation of foundation as in because it is a type, if you see the name, it is a heap or a mound breakwater. So you have to just go on dumping the material inside the sea. Okay, so just in the dredging, as we saw that in dredging, if you have to prepare an artificial island, what you do is you excavate the sand or the material from the seabed at a location and then dump it, go on dumping it continuously at the desired location, and then it forms a mound over it or heap, and then it results in an artificial island. So in similar way, you have this heap or mound breakwater in which you just go on dumping the rubble, and then it will take the shape after the boulder rest on the seabed or ocean bed, and then it will form a mound which you can then use as a breakwater. So it doesn't require any foundation, you have to just go on dumping the material. And the construction in porous, so this is the advantage of it. Now why you need to be porous? Because I told you that the suction effect of water, that is going, if you don't provide access to that path to that water, it will create a uplift pressure. Okay. This suction water also, and even the uplift pressure will be there at the bottom. Okay, this foundation level, the toe level, you can say. So to avoid that suction effect, you know that this is just in this photograph what you see, that just rubble or the boulders, they are dumped on each other and there is a clear gap in between, so that will allow the water to go through it. Okay, and that will not create a uplift pressure. And also There is no overturning or slipping. Now you'll come to know when we see the next few types that why this overturning is coming into picture. Okay. So the case study, what I showed you of Japan. So in that I had shown one photograph. Yeah, this one, in which you see this breakwater, it has toppled, or this is nothing but the overturning failure. That this breakwater was something, it was looking something like this. Okay. And then due to these forces or due to the tsunami wave, it just toppled on this side. Okay. And then you can see this failure. So this kind of overturning is almost nullified in case of a rubble, sorry, in case of a heap or mound rubble breakwater, because everything is porous. So you are giving the opportunity to the sea wave to break down. Okay. So that dissipates your energy efficiently also. But if we talk about the disadvantages, so obviously it needs regular maintenance, because what I'm saying that you have to just dump these boulders into the sea. So ultimately they will take some time to settle and to attain an equilibrium, you can say. Okay. So maybe in the initial few years, the boulders, it will take some time to interlock between each other, and then after the initial years, then it will be a bit stable. So in the initial years especially, you need regular maintenance to check whether the height of that breakwater, whether it has changed or mainly decreased or not. Okay. And when the projection of stone is chipped by water, the stones can roll down, causing gaps in the breakwater. As in, if suppose there is an irregular shape, all this rubble or the boulders that we are dumping, they are of irregular shape because we are not crushing them. Whatever is the shape we obtain from just mining and blasting, you can say, so that we are dumping it. So if some of the edges, they get chipped off due to the effect of waves, so they will create gaps, more gaps in between that, in between the breakwater. Okay. So we are purposefully keeping gaps, but the gap should be sufficient enough just to allow water or allow the wave to break its energy, but it should not be so large, or the gap should not be such huge that it allows the whole wave to go inside and then destroy the breakwater. Okay. Then obviously, if we think on the economical aspect, though we are saying that it is low cost, but low cost as in the material is cheap, but anyways you require a lot of material, because we are not having a specific design for it. We are just dumping the material till we see a proper height above the sea level. Okay. So that's why the material, a lot of material is wasted. Also, the time is wasted. Okay. And it occupies a large area. So it requires large base so that it will form this kind of a trapezoidal shape. So if you have a small harbor area, so in that it is not recommended to go for this heap or mound type breakwater, especially the rubble type, because it requires a large area, and then the area which is required for the movement of your ships, that will not be achieved. Okay. So this is with the rubble mound breakwater. So I stop here for today because